This is Just Zach and Spirit Show.
Excellent. So you just mentioned that, being in academic, there is a bit of a balance between having a research load and a teaching load. And then you also have to find time somewhere in between that to try to focus on, engaging with industry. And I've noticed some of the more clever researchers in our field have managed to make sure all three sort of feed into each other. Is that something you've found? Or
Yeah, so something that's interesting about Swinburne and what attracted me to this uni and this role is that our workload and our research performance directly requires us to have engagement with industry. So we can't be research intensive, if you will, with just academic publications or just academic work. We are expected or highly encouraged, let's say, to be doing work with industry partners that's either generating income or is having some kind of engagement, communication through the media with the public, or increasingly as well social impact. So wanting us to do research that is making a difference in the community. And as you said, I think the best way to do that is to combine all of those those activities.
100%.
If you're researching in an area that is interesting to and relevant to industry or the community, I think, and you can do that in a rigorous way. You can do that in a way that is then going to tick the boxes of engagement, hopefully funding, and then publications in the academic sphere as well.
Yeah. So I kind of have, that sort of makes me think about two different things in terms of, how does Swinburne University work? Because a lot of the people who are listeners to this podcast are either in industry and so don't really have a general sense about how academic sort of life works or what our priorities are. Or those who are in academia may work in very different models or have different groups. So a bit of a time allocation for a traditional lecturer, I suppose, would be 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% kind of engagement / admin-y type stuff. Is that a similar model for Swinburne?
It's interesting. So the answer is it depends. The way that we have a sliding scale model, meaning that the research allocation that you are given is directly dependent on your performance and your past performance. And
the research side of things.
Correct.
Okay.
And so the research side of things looks at your traditional academic outputs. Yep. So think journal articles, book chapters or books if they're certain publishers and that kind of thing, but your traditional academic outputs. It weights that equally with industry engagement, which is judged based on income. Okay. So it's not just commercial income. That includes like government grants as well. Yep. And then there's also a little bit of that which is impact. So if you can demonstrate that something that you have done has made a difference, that contributes to your research performance and research.
You recorded a podcast, and that's going to get distributed. So I think that's it.
That's it. This is So it's interesting because impact for us, the way that Swinburne dictates it, is we've got to show that somebody has changed something as a result of something that we have done. So they would count a podcast like this as engagement.
Engagement, yeah.
So I could make a case that the millions of listeners to your podcast.
And there are millions of them.
Definitely. Highly intelligent people, no doubt, is engagement. So the impact would be if one of those listeners, wrote to you and said, based on that fascinating podcast and those insights that I got, my company completely changed our strategy of whatever, and now we have X more profit or something. That's what we class as impact. So those three things, your academic outputs, your income, and your impact narrative or statement, combine to give you a research performance score. And based on that, over a rolling 3-year average period, you are given a research allocation. Yeah. So more research means more time for research. It's sort of, the bit of the double jeopardy idea. People who are doing lots of research get lots of research time, and those people do more research, they get more research time.
Yeah, it's very difficult to go back. In fact, I don't remember seeing anyone come back from teaching. And it's one of those things that I feel, probably a lot of people in industry wouldn't understand, especially my parents don't understand. I work for a university, and they think that all day, every day, I'm in front of a lecture theatre full of students, and I'm just talking nonstop about marketing concepts. And they really don't understand the nuances of our job, that it involves, like, a whole lot of time involves prepping for those lectures and then marking the students' work, but also the research side of stuff, and the key differences between someone who's allocated quite a lot of time to research and someone who's a lecturer, for example. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah, definitely. So, and I've got a lot of friends who are high school teachers, for example, and the amount of time that they are in the classroom in front of students is a lot higher than I am.
Pretty much all of their time.
And it's most of the day, all day, and all week.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a different model, which can be hard to explain. And as you said, I've also got friends who are in corporate consulting roles, and for them it's this sort of strange idea of not constantly working on projects. That there is time for teaching, and then there's also time for personal development, or that research can be learning about a new topic as much as it can be actually crunching numbers or writing reports, or those kind of more tangible things.
I think that's it's one of the aspects of the job that we have is there's such variety in it. I never find myself getting bored. And, you may have those days where you're like, oh, I'm really sick of looking at numbers today. But you have to get to a certain point. And if you want, you can kind of switch to the writing aspect, or just switch to the doing sort of more commercial research sort of things, or better catch up on my teaching. Like, you can switch between tasks, and you have quite autonomy being a researcher.
Yeah, and this is what attracted me away from corporate consulting. So when I first graduated from my undergrad, so I did a Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Commerce. I did psychology and marketing.
Okay.
And I went straight to work for a market research firm because that to me was the combination of psychology and marketing, understanding why people do what they do, the brands they like, why, all those kind of things, and applying some of that statistical research knowledge you learn from psychology fit really well. But what I realized was that as a full-time, research consultant, I was at the beck and call of my commercial clients, and it was the kind of place where, you're given the work phone, and your work phone is expected to be on you at all times. And so if the company had I put in quotation marks, crisis, they could contact you at any time, and we were expected to be able to respond. And so a lot of that, what I found was, we did some fascinating work, but it was always the work that the clients were interested in. So it was they had an idea, or if we had an idea, we were trying to sell them on it. And so a lot of my time was not dictated by me. It was, this project is on at this date because my client has a national presentation to all their stakeholders, whatever it might be. And so the academic industry really appealed to me for that autonomy. And then what I found was that there's this really nice, and what I see as, I guess, emerging part of academia, which is, to me, almost a perfect middle ground, which is academics who are highly trained and have really inquisitive minds working with the right industry partners to solve big problems, not just necessarily, which color should we use for our discount tickets or whatever, which are important questions commercially, but trying to solve what I see as, I guess, bigger, longer lasting problems that are not something you could do in a month-long standard consulting project. And that to me is really appealing. I like that space, and that's the space I'm trying to play in, I guess.